Austin Police Chief Art Acevedo says Officer Derek Bowman acted properly on October 1st when he shot 16-year-old Devin Contreras to death after confronting him at a burglary at a store in South Austin. Acevedo says the dashboard camera video will show the shooting was proper, despite the officer's incorrect initial report that he believed the 16-year-old had fired on him first. The officer, says Acevedo, had no choice but to fire at the youngster pointing a gun at him.
Our officer did everything we really asked of them, which he not only had the camera going, he angled his police car to capture that scene in the most effective manner possible. His angle on the car, here's the door, and he put the vehicle looking right out the doorway, and he was confident that he had captured the entire thing. So for an officer to report something intentionally that he thought was inaccurate would just not be the case in a case like this.
And even absent the muzzle flash, his actions were appropriate response to what was happening out there.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, we've reviewed the tape, and it's really clear that there was a threat at this officer. There was a reasonable threat standard that we use, and unfortunately, this young man knew the police was present when the police officer spotted him in the front of the store. He decided to run, and in the process of running, armed himself with a pistol or with a handgun, a revolver he had on his person. And when an officer starts yelling, "Let me see some hands," rather than putting his hands up and dropping the gun, turned with the gun in his hand at the officer. It was an appropriate response.
And the video clearly shows this?
Oh, the video clearly shows it, yeah. What's really interesting about this case is that you will be able to, the public and the grand jury will be able to see two different tapes from two different points of view. One tape of our officer that was involved in the shooting, the officer's in the right door of his police car, and it's almost like the tape provides, like Chief Carter was saying, a view through the eyes of the officer of what he saw when he made the decision to fire. And then the other patrol car tape is of a second backup unit that's coming that captures the scene from a little bit of a distance of the officer's police car, the one that was involved in the shooting, his position, and you can actually see the suspect jump out of that door in the back of that Big Lots. And so it's a very dramatic video, and I think when you see the speed of when these things happen, I think that it's really eye-opening. And what I ask the public, and I think that what's important for people to look at, is you need to put yourself in the mindset of that police officer and in the position of that police officer, and consider what would you do if all of a sudden, if you had this information and then this guy jumps out in the middle of the night and then rather than complying with the command, turns with a loaded gun. You know, there's not much you can ask of that officer than to defend himself. And for an officer to report that he saw muzzle flash or heard gunshots coming from the suspect, based on the studies that are available out there on the physiology and the psychology of officer-involved shootings, that is not unusual.